My name is Zachary Faust. I sell homes for a living, and I've been on TikTok since 2019 trying to get you to want to buy a home. Just going to be real with you. I wanted you to buy a home. Why? In Southern Delaware specifically, if you were to want to buy or sell a home and I was to be able to put it on market, I could make a commission on the sale. And at that point in time, that was my main means. And slowly became to be such a means that I had more than I'd ever thought I'd ever have. See, there was a year that between coaching and sales, because I was telling people how to do what I was doing on social media, I made over $400,000, my wife and I. And it changed things for me. I wasn't worried about the cost of date night. I wasn't worried about what was going into my grocery cart. I wasn't worried about making the mortgage payment. And so I got onto TikTok to sell homes in 2019, April, to sell homes. All while, for the next 3 years, I would get to do just that. I would market update you to heck. I would get into the data. I would get into the analysis. I would tell you why Delaware is the best and why. But slowly but surely, I didn't realize that I had a VIP front row seat to watching the American dream get sifted away from the working class. To go from I'm talking people into the best investment possible, an inflationary asset they should hold on to, and the shelter for them and their family long term. I love this. This is fulfilling to 90% of people can't even stare down a mortgage every single month without thinking, how am I gonna freaking pay this? Without the amount of times that I had to dive into why and dive into how and dive into what could change, only to arrive at the end of the maze, oftentimes a little bleaker than I started. So what I was finding, every historical piece of evidence I learned, every presidential term that I researched, every bill and piece of legislation I looked at, I was confounded to think, man, there's a lot going on in the Middle East and there seems to be a lot of bipartisan support for it. But that's not what I'm talking about. There seems to be a lot of corporations and a lot of people making a lot of money, and there seems to be a lot of bipartisan support for that. But what I continued to find was the undoing of what was put in place to make sure where we're at wouldn't happen. Let me run that back. The amount of things that I found, from the removal of Glass-Steagall, the removal in the 80s of all the regulations and the tax bracket shifts of Reagan, when I look into the early 2000s and see the private equity margins skyrocket up to 30-1 on treasury bonds, when I start to look back through the system and look at Citizens United in 2010, post-2008 crash, when I look at the infiltration, the infestation of institutional investors buying up and banking on asset inflation that is housing, that is shelter, keeping normal everyday people out of having